Story number 1. Back a handful of years ago, I did my handful of home smudging with sage sticks and helping others rid spirits or entities that were there before they moved in. Yes, I'm talking about ghosts and things that go bump in the night. So I never did mind it, as others or friends would call me up for help. But for a year or so, I stopped. More so due to a friend doing something that I had told him not to, which led to him ending his own life. A friend called me up and asked if I could come over and do a reading and cleaning of her new home. I had all the things I needed to do it, so I told her I would be there in a bit. I then proceed to pack up the sage, oil, and candles. I got a text asking me to take my spirit board. I had my cards, and I didn't think it would be too bad to do so I put the deck in my bag and set off. I got there, looked around to see that it was close to my old friend's home that had passed on. I did my best not to think about that as I walked past that old green house. It had a for sale sign up in the window. I knew it was going to stay like that for some time, or at least I had hoped. I had just arrived at my friend Jane's house. She was a nice girl, and is to this day. But as I walked into her place, I could feel the energy and vibe was off in some way. I started walking around, and then I asked her why she wanted me to bring my spirit board. She told me, to see if the thing was good or bad. I had to let her know it did not work like that, but I would use something less draining for me. I did have a pendulum with me, so I did the show me yes, show me no test, and it seemed to work for the most part. I asked the spirit, "Are you male?" and then it moved to the yes position. I asked if it was kind. It moved to the no position. I told my friend my findings as I put it back in my pocket, and that it was all that I needed to know, and that we needed to remove it immediately. So I started my work, and it all went like it should. The home felt better, and it did look lighter too. We sat and had dinner after that. I asked what the full extent of the happenings were. I had the feeling that someone was doing its best to push her, hit her, and one time she said it felt like someone was trying to tell her to kill herself. I was worried about that. I told her about the place down the way that was my old friend's home and what had gone on there. Then she told me why she wanted me to have the board with me. She wanted to talk to it to find out why the entity wanted her. I told her it would be a foolish thing to do. She did not want to know more, but I told her it would be better if we did not explore it any further. What made it something I feared was a dream I had after. It looked to me like this entity was looking over my friend, doing his best to pull her soul out. I called her after this, and she told me that was how she had been feeling the last day or so before I came over. After that, odd things started happening around my place. Things would move. The cat was never happy, and I had to keep my board in its box. This was not something I liked doing, seeing that it was my main thing setting on my altar. I had to do a cleaning of my own place with my roommate's help at the time. After that, it all stopped. But we did witness a dark presence pass out the front door that same night. The years passed, and the only reason I even recalled this was due to a fire that happened in the area 2 weeks ago. The family that had moved into the green home had been out of town as someone set it on fire. Sadly, that home is gone, and I know for a fact that the land holds a certain evil power. Story number 2. This story comes from something a good friend from work told me. We were working at the same school during this time period. Clark College is a rather nice place to work, and you can see all sorts of odd and creepy things going on there. Before I started working there, they had a place there called the Star Building, and it was right next to the T Building. Both buildings had at one time been part of the city and not the school. The Star was used as a morgue or something like that. The morgue had all sorts of real death certificates on the walls. They had used it for some classes that are now located in a newer, more updated building. The Star Building became more so a place in despair and ruins. The city of Vancouver had scheduled it to be demolished. The city had things in the building that the school could not sell nor wanted. The school would often find homeless men in the building at all hours of the day or night. When staff would go and clean, they would always take a golf club with them, as it had little to no power and was always super dark. It did have at least one light, though, in an elevator that did not work. Rats and other wildlife had lived there too. So we had to go there one night, about 1 a.m. Graveyard work. Have to love it. He went in there, as he had done over and over before, and found nothing. But the light started to flash, and he could hear someone saying his name. He noped out. They ended up opening it up to the city to pull whatever they wanted before demo was to take place. On the next day shift, he was one of the two that had to stay at the building. Both of them did not go in there, and most did not stay any longer than 5 to 10 minutes at a time. So now it's gone. But more and more things going on in the T Building. Voices have been heard, and other strange sightings have been made. Yes, I've seen them, and others have too. Nothing too bad, though. They are now putting a new building there, and it's almost done. All my friend and I can think is whatever was on that piece of land before may end up coming back. We hope nothing odd will go on in the future. Story number 3. Let me start out by saying, I lived in a little town called Naturita in Colorado. It was on the outside of town, but I love this little place. It's one town I wish I could move back to one day. The home we lived in is a place I would love to go back to if I could. It was a nice ranch-style home that had more land around it than I can recall. We lived next to the river and down from the rock quarry. There was a shopping mart and a bee shop behind it. It was a rather nice place until the owner had to sell it to a junkyard owner. Back when I was a kid, the land was a big open world for me and my older sister and little brother to play. We always had cats and dogs. The dogs did a great job of keeping bears and other things away. Not only was it by the river, but next to hills and one single road. I was about 7 or 8. My sister was having a sleepover one night. It was her and 4 other girls. I wanted nothing to do with this little get-together. Sadly, for as long as I can recall, I had been seeing things around there, but it never got too bad. Our home had a back room that always seemed to be cold, like an ice box. Even on a hot day, it was cold as ice, or at least it felt that way to me. My sisters and her friends decided to camp out in that room for their sleepover on the night. There was a wood hole in the wall that we had opened, more so for me to give soda and pizza to them as they asked. My side of the room had 2 doors, and my sister's side was on the bigger side of the room. I had one of the hundreds of VHS movies we had on the TV. Mom let me stay up since it was summer vacation. My sister came to the door to ask me for something, and then I looked over from the chair as both doors slammed shut. Then, all the lights went out. My sister and her friend started screaming in utter horror. I ran to the main door to the back room, tried to open it. The 5 girls behind the door had been doing their best to open this door. I could hear my sister saying, "Something's holding down the lights." It was only about 2 minutes, and then out of nowhere, the door opened, knocking me back to the back door that led to the outside. I looked up as my sister pulled me and ran with me into the living room. As we got there, the lights kicked on and the doors to the wood hold sat open. That night, we all stayed in the living room. But this was not the only thing that went on there. But this one thing made me want to look into the paranormal. Thanks for listening, guys. Sinful here. Please make sure to leave a like, comment, share this video with everyone, and make sure to subscribe to join the Sinful Nation. And I just want to throw a quick thank you out to the subscriber that submitted these 3 stories. Great stories. So glad that you shared and felt comfortable with that. So until next time, stay sinful.